It's me, Gabagoo Life, welcome. It's me, Gabagoo Life, welcome. It's me, Gabagoo Life, welcome. It's me, Gabagoo Life, welcome.
That's my opinion!
Welcome back to a series. Hi everyone, it's me, your host Gabagool. It's my life. Hi. This is one more episode and we're finished with this series. Oh, incredible. Thank you so much for tuning in. This episode is about the queer agenda. It is about a brand I created, and I'm going to walk you through my experience. This whole series, if you haven't watched the other episodes, go back and listen to them, are about sharing our experiences, being vulnerable, living authentically, even if it's like, hey, these are my flaws. These are the things I messed up on. I could have done better in life. Holding all that stuff and that junk against yourself and trying to beat your head up. No, we're not living in no more shame, no more guilt. No, in order to heal, part of this healing journey and understanding that healing journey is just to not care anymore about what other people think. More like, what do you think about yourself? How's your confidence doing? Are you living fabulously, or are you allowing others to dictate you still year after year after year? Hi. So let's talk about this. It takes work, y'all, to have to hold a mirror to yourself first. Are you kidding me? We're so used to looking outward and having those judgment eyes that we forget looking at ourselves and our lives and how we can improve ourselves to be better for the collective is really the goal here. But we have gotten so far out of hand and being so mean to each other. No, you can be funny without being mean. I learned that. I learned that from going through comedy training, and I try to live that life. I understand that there's a way of talking to each other. And I'm not sure when disagreeing with each other somehow turned so upside down that it was tossed into this like 3,000 degree fire, a little hot sauce added for good measure, and then toss that shit in the canal. I don't know where the energy came from, but we forget that the people that we are having so much anger towards are queer and trans individuals. What? No. Now this is a good time to stop and remind you, please don't litter and spay and neuter your pets. When I recall this whole experience centered around the queer agenda made me feel overall, I had to have some empathy on the fact that queer and trans people have been bullied. We just have. And now I see the same people who have been bullied also being bullies to each other. There's no hierarchy. There's no one person or identity is somehow greater than the next. And if you disagree with this next statement that we can't create space for all, then we're actually staying in that anger. And growth happens when you create space easily. That's how I feel. It's interesting to me when we want to scream inclusion and we want people of society to see us, yet we are doing our own exclusion. I think the way we rise as one is we stop trying to step on each other's shoulders and we start lifting each other up. Everybody. And not just people that agree with you and not just people who you know and who you like and who you don't like. Everybody. That's what's so complex about our community is we don't do that. And we have so many different identities and we're invalidating each other's identities. And it's wild to me because we can do better. We can communicate better. We can ensure that people are heard and also validated and also respected. And criticism does happen. Criticism of a queer or trans person in power of the job they are doing and how they could do it better is not a personal attack. Personal attacks are if someone were to corner their friend and question why they're their friend, reach out to places to try to get them fired, exclude them, ban them, have this disillusion that somehow the person that they're angry about are against trans and BIPOC individuals. Spreading false narratives? Girl, gay, they. We're no longer about that, or we shouldn't be about that. If everybody listening does not know this, Phoenix, Arizona is the 5th largest city. And we do have some of the same queer and trans people leading every single queer-focused organization. Over the years, you just sort of see people rotate into different positions. That's just true. That's my perspective. I could talk all day about it. But that doesn't mean these people don't care. Because people who put in the work and the dedication and the time means they care. People who are passionate about change means they care. People that show up and ask questions to those in power and ensuring equity means they care. A check in someone's power shouldn't be a fragile check. It should be a let's balance the power equitably. And that's how you build fairness. You get more people involved. You get more people excited to participate. And it puts a very independent voice on your community and provides that checks and balances that we need. Getting more people involved? Are you kidding me? I had this incredible idea. Just hear me out. So Phoenix Pride, this is one of the things I brought to their board. And if we were able to capture a percentage of the 50,000 people that come into the festival to give every month to do a community cleanup project, wouldn't that be incredible? Could you imagine, even if like 2,000 people were like, yes, I'm going to dedicate 5 hours of my time every month. And we made these beautiful projects and we went into our Phoenix Metro and we just showed people our joy and our collective ability to want change. And then we look back and we're like, yep, queer and trans people clean that up. Yep, we love you even if you don't see us. Do you just think how powerful that is? Oh, I'm manifesting. Being free and my purpose are equal to each other. And that comes with just like a dedication of self-love and finding those wounds inside of you and working on them. And letting them know, hey, it's okay. We know you exist. You're in a lived experience. I'm with the feeling that it's queer on queer hate if we make things personal. You can dislike a personality or how someone comes across or how maybe they communicate because, let's be fair, I'm a better talker than I am a writer or a communicator or even a social media poster. Okay, acknowledge.
Integrity is huge. And if you're mad at somebody because they regain their brand from you, just say that. But don't try to characterize somebody as this like menace of a person when really you just didn't get along and there was drama, there was conflict, there was breakup, there was gayness, and now there's turmoil. So this is me ending this turmoil. I'm sharing this story completely so that you can replay it over and over again. So let's jump right into it. If you know me, you know that I'm just gonna lay it all out. I'm gonna be as real as possible, and I'm gonna try to remove my feelings or say these are my feelings versus trying to have something that's emotionally charged, because let me be real. This is a highly emotionally charged story. So let's start. Prior to 2018, I was creating events, mainly raising money for education, HIV related, children's related needs, all kinds of nonprofits locally. And I got my experience on event coordination and event organizing through that process. So I had started doing for-profit events just a few months prior to starting the Queer Agenda, which was a drag show.
Alt queer scene was pretty underground. Tucson had Vamp, Phoenix had What the Queer. Even though the Gender Outlaws had really paved the way for everybody in Phoenix to be their gender fuck self prior to the Queer Agenda coming along, I wanted a weekly show that people could be celebrated, be different, express themselves openly, and have all different kinds of variations of art, and not just the pretty queens.
So I was doing events at BS West, and Mike, who was the then owner at BS West, who is also the executive director now at Phoenix Pride, didn't want the show there. Mainly, I asked for a budget that they didn't want to give. So we went to Stacy's. We got the blessings from Mike. We went to Stacy's, and I gave Stacy this whole story on what I wanted to do, and Stacy loved it. Now, the owners at Stacy's are different now. It's still Stacy's at Melrose, but then it was Stacy who was running Stacy's at Melrose then. And yes, this is all local drama, but the thing is, this sort of situation has happened in the burlesque community, in the live singing community, in the dance community. So it's not just specific to drag. And really, this whole thing comes down to money and creative integrity. That's what I stand on. And that's where all this turmoil came from. So I went over to Stacy's. Stacy said, yes, let's do it. Let's do a weekly show on Tuesday night. I'm going to call it the Queer Agenda. I went to Benediction, who I was really good friends with at the time. We had known each other through the club scene. Benediction and Ruby were kind of connected together at the time doing a show called Sis. And I was like, let's bring the weirdos all into one show. And sure enough, I did. I brought us all together. At the time, Dolly was working as a bartender bar back at BS West, so it all made sense completely to bring us all together, especially how talented everybody was. Later on, we added Astrid. It just made sense. Astrid was Dolly's daughter. Astrid is incredibly talented and can come up with all different kinds of concepts and beautiful to watch on stage. Now, the idea was we were being hired as independent contractors with a budget based on needs of the show. And let me just tell you, I advocated for every show host to get $100 and I would get $150. I would pay for the flyers, I would do the promotion, I would print the flyers. Thank you, Stacy, for allowing us to use your business discount for those flyers at FedEx, Kinko's. But yes, all of that cost came out of my pocket. Online promotion, every single dollar that I made, I put back into that show, mainly because I wanted to be successful and I believed in it so much. I was naive, inexperienced, dumb, I don't know. But I felt like the pressure to make this show successful fell solely on my back. I was the only one putting up deposits for out-of-town guests. I was the only one navigating any out-of-pocket costs. I wasn't the one that was just had my hand out trying to collect tips or trying to get booked. That was a different feeling for me because towards the end, I sort of just took control. And I took control mainly because we were experiencing some lows. There was some internal conflict. Things needed to get done that weren't getting done on time. For instance, people who needed to submit performers didn't do it on time. So then that put the flyer person behind. And so I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to book everybody and we're going to have those flyers done and we're going to call it a day. Because in the part of the business that people don't know is like you have to produce, you have to have the production, you have to meet your deadlines, you have to ensure that there's enough time to market and promote and instill that people know exactly what's happening in terms of like your events. And I think one of my downfalls is being really transparent with Stacy as far as like what we're taking in for the door, what we're taking in for events, cost wise. Also, Stacy shared with me what our liquor sales were during our show. I had a great idea that everyone was making money. In terms of liquor sales were a few $1,000s, and we took in enough to break even for our out-of-town guests, for our paid spots, for decorations and promotions. Luckily, Stacy's paid for the spotlight person as well as our DJ, so that was really nice. We had a full-on production. It was beautiful. And within the first year, the Queer Agenda won Show of the Year, show director Carnita Asada. Thank you so much for voting. I loved this show so much. And this would be considered a success as far as like my first for-profit idea, brand, concept. So it was really a huge learning experience and I loved it so much. Conflict came into play as I was so stressed that I didn't know how to balance the mind, body, soul, spirit, and the stress. So I was a little snappy. I had an attitude problem. I could be considered a bitch at the time. And I really took control over everything because I felt like, again, it was my brand. It was my idea. Everything fell on my shoulders. So we had a special guest. I think I was there like 16 months, or say 18 months, something like that. And there was a special out-of-town guest who, you know, didn't bring in the excitement that we thought we were going to bring in. And Stacy was incredibly worried. He was worried because we had meetings. He said he was worried. He's like, look at these numbers. This is how much we paid. And the list continued. In that moment, we had another special guest that was coming up for Pride Month. So we were having two special guests. And he was very stressed about the sales, what we were going to bring in for that upcoming special guest. Where the conflict comes into play, because prior to that other special guest coming into town, I received an email from Brown Paper Tickets, which is the place that we did our special events. Anybody could buy their entry, general admission, VIP meet and greets, the standards in terms of like event organization. And the email indicated that Stacy's at Melrose now had control over my ticket event. And I was just flabbergasted. I was like, what's going on? Stacy didn't talk to me. Why? This must be a mistake. So I called up Brown Paper Tickets, and Brown Paper Tickets indicated that Stacy had showed them that he was the owner of the business where the event was being taken place at. Remind you, all this is unbeknownst to me. So no conversation, no conflict resolution, none of that. This is just sort of happened, sort of like pulling the rug underneath somebody. So Brown Paper Tickets indicated that Stacy showed that he was the owner of Stacy's, and actually their words were that Stacy said I was a disgruntled employee that he was going to get rid of or fire, and he needed to do it in a seamless way. Mind you, we were independent contractors. I was an employee. Yes, Arizona is a one-party record state, so I have those recorded, but mainly I want to say this once and not talk about it again. Felt like the right thing to do was to involve my castmates, my team, the people that we've been together for a year about this situation. I showed them the email, I talked to them about what happened. I believe it was a Monday all this went down, and I had asked the entire team, I said, will you please just not perform tomorrow as I try to figure out what happened with Stacy, because I hadn't had a chance to talk to Stacy yet. The text message screenshots indicate, no, we're not going to sit this out, so no sisterhood in my opinion, and 2, they all needed the money. That's what it said. We're going to do it for the money. That issue is between you and Stacy and not us. We need the money. I knew in that moment that I was alone, though I knew that I had to stand for something because I felt like it was very backdoor. It was very unethical. I didn't feel like it was a good business move. And personally, I'm not going to put my brand or my name on something if it's not a good connection, if it's not compassionate, if it doesn't support the idea. Sometimes you have to walk away. So I'm like, okay, y'all, I'm going to take my brand. You all can name it something else. We'll talk soon. Good luck. But no, just like any good band that breaks up, there is turmoil and there is issues and drama. And so they wanted to keep the brand because, one, it's been around. It's been successful. It is a good brand. The Queer Agenda is an excellent brand. And as one of them said, no, we're not going to change it because it's a good brand. Duh, I created it. Brenda from, I believe it was House of Smalls, went into the Arizona State business trademark name and trademarked the name and basically gave it to Eve All, who was running the Queer Agenda in my absence. I was still screaming from the rooftop, change the name, it's my brand. Then it became this online war attack. That was the very first time, I believe in 2019, that it was just like, oh, GABA's the issue. But nobody once said, hey, GABA's the one that hired me. Here's the interview of me saying that GABA is the one that asked me to do it. No one said, hey, this is GABA's brand. Maybe we should, I don't know, pay them a fee or ask them if we can buy the name, or none of that. The idea was GABA created it, we're going to keep it, and we're going to plant our feet and be as disruptive as possible anytime GABA wants to try to get their brand back. Look, I say GABA, but at the time I was Carnita Asada. There was this tug of war. I went over to Kobalt that year in 2019 and produced my very first Halloween show. That's when I started my business. I turned what I knew in event organizing, brand creation, and production into a business. While this was all going down, there was a flex, and that flex was, we own the trade name through the Arizona State Business Commission, therefore it is ours. So on this same day that this whole turmoil happened, I just went right to the federal trademark and I started planning the trademark process. I was not messing around. I was going to put up a fight because I believe I was not in the wrong. Yeah, you can have conflict with someone, but you should still maintain creative integrity. That's how I feel. After we all started to open back up after the pandemic, I had this idea about a variety, sex positive, inclusive, burlesque, freak show sort of vibe called the Ho Carnival. I asked Phoenix Knight to co-host with me, and we created beautiful magic. You know, the sad part about all of this is losing friends in this conflict, and losing friends to the point where people will harass them We'll corner them, yell at them, why are you friends with GABA? We'll message them incredibly rude rumors about someone to try to character assassinate them, all because you're bitter and mad about me having a voice, me wanting to regain my brand, me trying to do what is right. Towards the 1 year of Ho Carnival, which let me just say, our audience was packed. Thank you all so much for continuing to support the brands and things that we produce. It's so fun to get out there and perform and to have your love and support. So thank you so much for investing in me. I love you. Oh my gosh. But the drama between the performers that month was I was not empathetic enough to someone who was having a mental breakdown. And really, I was trying to produce a show. I was trying to get someone to turn in their stuff. They weren't doing it, so I just cut them from the show besides having a conversation with them. Look, if I say that I needed stuff at a certain time and you didn't give it to me, I just move on with my life. Now, when I work with people, I let them know if you don't turn things in, guess what? I'm just gonna assume that you're not showing up and I'm gonna cut you from the show. It's very simple. To be in a show, you must turn in what's needed, you must promote, and you must show up. That's it. And if you can't do those things, then there's other variables that maybe need your attention. And I am not here to dismiss or to try to understand somebody else's mental needs. I'm trying to produce a show. And I get that. Maybe I could have been more empathetic. But this individual was having a moment and they didn't turn in what was needed, so I cut them from the show. Now here comes the drama. The drama of the show was Alexander Strike did not like how I handled it. And rightfully so. I should have handled it in a different manner. Alexander Strike, Ben Havoc, they led this charge where they wanted to pull out from the show. They wanted to stop the show. They wanted to cancel the show because I wasn't empathetic enough to this person's need. Perfect. That's fine. You can absolutely do that. That is your will and testament. Go ahead, do it, cancel yourself. That's fine. Where the drama circle comes back is the fact that Alexander Strike is the drag child of Eddie Broadway. Alexander Strike also, when I had conflict with Phoenix Pride at the main stage because we had cussing, last year or so, Alexander Strike came up to me, yelled at me because our group had cussing, which the rules basically were like, if it's not excessive cussing, it's fine. Alexander Strike was like, we're gonna cut your hour if there's any more cursing because main stage is cuss word free, which I know they just made that up. The bias amongst all of this with Alexander is I watched Alexander from the side stage, which I think there's a video, and the group that came after us, which by the way was a paid act where they are regularly booked in, and their act had a mix that said cunt. Like I think I counted 8+ times. And I don't care about the word cunt, but I did not see you speak to them. I did not see you try to cut their hour. I did not see you try to pitch a fit. Circling back, Alexander Strike is the drag child of Eddie Broadway. And Eddie Broadway is one of the two people that chooses the entertainment for Phoenix Pride. Eddie Broadway is also dating Christopher V. Lee Onyx, which what's important to the story is to paint the picture of exactly what's happening. Both Christopher and Eddie Broadway are regularly scheduled paid bookings at the Queer Agenda, now called the Queer Kana. They also have helped with their virtual setup when the Queer Agenda was doing virtual performances. They also navigate on a regular basis their online presence through Instagram, their flyers. One of them runs their Phoenix Pride prelim. One of them is regular booked at Kobalt on Thursday nights as a show host. So it's all about money. Just say what it is. It's all about money, who's benefiting, who's not, who wants to admit that they're wrong. I'm not gonna even get into it about these individuals misusing their power, in my opinion, me showing Phoenix Pride evidence, having them ignore it. I'm not even gonna get into the fact that my name is slandered. My name is all over the mouths of these two individuals, mainly because the story that I can tell is one of truth. It shows biases, it shows prejudice towards me, it shows actions that misuse their power, and frankly, that doesn't make someone look good. And if you have that sort of story, you may want to try to silence that individual. Now I'm going to challenge you to go back to last year's 18+ tent, because Eddie Broadway booked all those individuals. Go compare all those people that were booked hour by hour to the stages that Eddie gets booked in, also to the people who are at Kobalt running shows, are regulars at Kobalt, and see that there's a connection. Though let's put a pin in it and go back to 2019 really quick. Talk about what really started all of this drama, which is me coming out as non-binary. I had a photo made. I had this idea that I wanted people to share about how they learn to love and be themselves. And I was surrounded by my friends who happen to be trans and people of color, because those are the people I hang out with. Those are the people I love. Those are the people that I get to share a lot of time and energy with. In that photo, because I taped my boobs, I was taken away from the trans man experience. I was called transphobic. I didn't even get to come out because of Eddie and Alexander and Ben and others who try to take that experience away from me. Do I feel like it was heated because of their connection to the queer agenda? Yes. Do I feel like that continues year after year without anyone healing and constantly them putting this narrative on me that is just always like this looming cloud? It's like, yeah, you know, I had to grow up in front of everybody in Arizona. I fell on my face a million times. I made a lot of mistakes. I haven't always been the best personality or the best person, but come on, at some point you got to let that moment go. And every single time there is a conflict, that picture is brought up and it's like, okay, that's from 2019. You're not sharing the whole story. You're sharing your reaction to me, which is really all of this, is the reaction to me. Flash forward to 2021, I was like, yeah, you know, let's bring these people in, let's try to heal the world. And then that backfired on me because I didn't handle the situation in the manner that they wanted. So I got canceled again by those individuals. Meanwhile, something to be said when Ben Havoc and their partner bring up a moment when I was hosting the Queer Agenda. And I'm glad that we've had this conversation. I'm glad we talked about it. I had no idea about it. But I hugged somebody without saying, hey, consent to hug, because I'm a hugger, right? That's just where I come from. And when I hugged this individual, I didn't know that I triggered them. I set them into a panic attack. Yeah, I didn't ask to hug you, and that's my fault, and I apologize for that. That's a lot of energy to place on me, or just someone that hugged you. It's like, I don't understand that. These individuals try to cancel me for, I don't know. At this point in 2021, I feel like it's the third or fourth time. I was still having the tug of war with the queer agenda, like, hey, you guys can't go over to industry. You can't go to another place at the Crescent Ballroom and put your name on something and still get paid. You can't do events and hide them under the Queer Agenda brand. You can't do that. You can't do that. Meanwhile, I got approved in 2020 for the trademark. Thank you so much, trademark, for the Queer Agenda. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I was trying to work with Stacy's. I was trying to work with the girls at the Queer Agenda. I've reached out to Eve All, who's running the Queer Agenda at the time. I reached out to Eddie and other individuals who are involved into that show. And it was all met with resistance, all because I wanted some sort of monetary payment. And I don't think that's impossible, because I put all my money, 16 plus months, into the show. The whole issue was over money with Stacy, the girls wanting to continue to work. So they did invite me back. I think it was like for the 4th year anniversary. And I did that show. I believe I ended up breaking my foot at that show. And me and Eve all got into conflict at that night, because I was like, so you gonna pay me royalties? You're gonna pay me what? To use my name? We're not paying you nothing. Again, the conflict happened. And then it was like, let's cancel GABA. And so for the 4th or 5th time, finally, I'm not one of those people who like to sue. I'm not somebody that, I actually get really anxious and really become extremely overwhelmed when it comes to having to sue somebody. And if I would have done this differently, instead of waiting 6 years later, I would have sued them right off the bat. Now here comes the really juicy creme de la creme drama. Get ready for the drama. 2019, after the whole incident with Stacy and the tug of war of the brand, I was banned from Stacy's. Then I don't remember what exactly happened in between, but somehow I got unbanned, and then I ended up doing the 4-year, and then there was conflict between me and Eve All that night after I broke my foot, and then I got rebanned. But I was still able to, I think it was in 2022, I can't really remember, but at some point after that, there was a December show, and it was Christmas themed. I did Jackie Beats' song. It's called Santa Raped Me. She's an original shot comedy queen. Look her up, incredible human, OG queen for sure. And I didn't put a trigger warning in my song, and somebody that is highly involved with that show was in the audience. They told Stacy. I got rebanned for that moment. Now with the new owners, I am unbanned. So there is a happy ending now, after all. And I asked them over and over again over the years, like, just change it. Why don't you just change it? So flash forward, I've been at Kobalt for a year doing the whole carnival. No conflicts with the staff. Had a great time with Jeff, who's the owner over at Kobalt. And then I received notification that the queer agenda was moving over to Kobalt. Okay, so it'd be Tuesday night, the queer agenda, Wednesday night, the Hope Carnival, Thursday night, Cirque du Soleil, Friday night would be Friday Night Foursome, and then Saturday is their Follies event. When I was at Kobalt, it felt like one big family, so I understand why anybody involved in these shows regularly would want to protect another show. I get that, especially everyone at Kobalt books each other. They all are benefiting off of each other's shows. Call it what it is. That's what it is. Sort of booking each other. And that's just common around here in the drag world. So when I hear a negative voice about me, I always check, okay, is it someone that works at Kobalt? And then I'm like, okay, is it valid? Is it not? Oh, are they just part of this sort of like anger moment towards me? I don't know. I have to really decipher what voices are important to hear and which ones are just mad voices from this exchange with the queer agenda. Part of the stipulation for them to coming over to my home bar, okay, I've been there since 2019 doing events, been there a year, ready. So for you to go from Stacy's to Kobalt, your stipulation was for Garnita at the time, to not be welcomed on Tuesday nights at my bar. And I was like, what? So I pushed back. Against Jeff, the owner at Kobalt. I'm like, wait a minute. Have I done you wrong? No. Have I done your staff wrong? No. So in order for my brand to come over to your bar, I can't be there on Tuesday nights. Make it make sense to me. And it didn't make sense. And it couldn't make sense. And then I showed him, I'm like, this is my brand. He's like, yeah, they told me that you were going to say that. He's like, you can't own a drag show. I was like, well, tell RuPaul that they can't own RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, what? This doesn't make sense. So instead of working with me, instead of saying, well, you know, I have the power as the owner to decide, and I know that you haven't done this to me. No, because it's a money maker. Again, making money on me. I'm not allowed at my own home bar on Tuesday nights as part of the stipulation enforced by Eddie, Chris, as part of Benediction, Astrid, Ruby Moore. As part of that whole gang, in order to come over at my home bar, I couldn't be there. So let's just play that again. I'm at my home bar. You're bringing my other brand over from another bar, and you have already made money at that other bar. So now you want to make money at the bar that I'm at. And part of your stipulation is to say, I can't be there. No, that's unethical. You can't do that. I mean, I guess you can if you have the willpower to make that choice as a business owner, absolutely. But if you also have that ability to make that decision, you can also say, nah, we're not going to do that unless there's conflict or issues or whatever. But no, that was part of their stipulation, and he enforced it, and he was all about that, and I was not having it. So I pitched a fit. I stood up for myself. I advocated against it. And then what happened? Oh, the whole carnival got there 1 year, and then we were done. We were gone. And that was sad because they would rather have this successful brand that I created, have me not be there, not have to acknowledge the fact that maybe you shouldn't do that. And then ultimately Kobalt banned me from all Kobalt related events. He was like, well, you can come on any other night. You can perform on any other night. I'm like, that's not the point. So ultimately I got banned indefinitely, and I stood up for myself, and I sent letters to both Eddie and Ben, and I was like, let's figure this out. So nobody wanted to work with me. Yeah, we can all share the same space, but still it's so toxic. It's so, oh my gosh, it's just so exhausting. So you went out of your way to try to get me banned because it was my brand in the first place. Then you banned me from the whole entire venue. Okay. So basically the same thing that happened at Stacy's because I brought up money. What? Make it make sense to me. If it doesn't sit right in my gut, it's not ethical. And I have to say something, even if it gets me banned. Yeah, I have to say something, even if it gets me banned. I'm also banned from C7 with some of those other individuals because I stood up and I said something to the then boss regarding, you know, some racial stuff. So I have to sit with my consciousness, which is more important to me than anything else. And if my conscience isn't sitting right, then I'm just sitting in silence, and that's not cool to me. Then the brand comes over to Kobalt, and I'm like, fine, now I have to take legal matters into my own hands. Finally, I hired a lawyer, and I regained my brand back. In that conflict, Eddie, Chris, which by the way are with Pride and also benefiting from the queer agenda, remember we talked about this, and benefiting from shows at Kobalt, remember we talked about this. They use their power to try to tell people, especially on the internet, to not work with me, to intimidate them to not work with me. Oh, that's right, I'm just trying to regain control over my brand. And then it became this like another cancelization. So I've been canceled like 6 times from these individuals, and it just doesn't seem to register to them that I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. I'm still thriving. I'm still somebody that is going to stand on principle. I'm going to stand on what I feel is right. And I'm going to also admit when I'm wrong. So where I'm at today with this whole queer agenda thing, I own the brand. They changed the name to the Queer Arcana. I'm still banned from Kobalt. I am not allowed really at Pride because of my conflict with Chris and Eddie. You know, paid staff member of Pride, manager at Pride. So to wrap all this up, I'm telling this story to let it go. And yes, I know the moment I put it out there, the internet is gonna go wild.
I made the decision many years ago to believe in other new performers because people didn't believe in me. I wanted to create opportunity for others because there wasn't a space or a lane for me. I don't perform for other performers. I perform for the people. And that has saved me because I put all my energy and love into the audience, to the fans, to the community, and not to other performers that maybe have a little bit of an attitude problem, myself included.
If your voice is ever muted, share your story. That is the time for you to open up your vocals and to share what is needed. Many times there is a bullying within our own community, and it is not to be allowed, especially if we have differences, especially in terms of trying to ostracize somebody, villainize somebody. And I would challenge you, if you hear anything negative in the room that you are in, as a leader, I want you to say something. I want you to say, listen, this person's not here, or don't do that, or we are better as a community than to have this sort of narrative spun around and around and around and around again. This whole series has been about vulnerability, so I am happy to share the story with you. I no longer want any drama. I no longer want those that speak ill of me from these places and these shows to affect me. And they no longer carry any weight because I'm letting it go.
To my bright, beautiful, smart, intelligent community, I have a challenge for you. If someone falls, pick them up. Stomping someone while they're down, trying to make them feel shame or guilt or belittling them or pointing at them, that mindset has to stop. If you see someone struggling mentally, physically, spiritually, help them in private and in public while avoiding wanting praise. If you see a frown or someone just not having a good day, it's okay to ask them, can I sit here a while and just be there? We're so lost that we haven't become present with our needs of ourselves and others. If we see each other first, we'll be able to produce a culture that can change our society as a whole because we have learned to lead by example among ourselves. And I think we deserve that. The point of all of this is I can do better. The point is you can do better. The point is we can all do better. And that starts with love. Healthy love. I am loved and followed by many who have felt my love and who have given me love in return. I know I am loved and I am celebrated from earthly angels and fans and friends and all kinds of individuals who give me the energy to continue to be myself. I know some of our families have been turmoil and not so nice and coming from many different backgrounds. I understand that. But it's time for us to treat each other as our chosen family and live in unconditional love. That means you don't have to gain anything from me or give me anything or do anything to receive unconditional love. We got to be the families that we never had. Thank you for being a life lesson, The Queer Agenda, The End. Until our next episode, I'm Gabagool.